Good. Hello, everyone. We're continuing in the book Torah Or, which is a basic book of Hasidut Chabad, designed to explain what exactly Moshiach is going to do and what we have to do in order to facilitate his arrival. And essentially, what Moshiach is going to do is what we're learning about here, and that's revealing God. How close God is. God's creating us. How far God is. He's creating all the spiritual worlds. And what God expects from us and how he'll help us to achieve it. So we're not alone. There were people that began this whole business called Judaism, and that's called Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They were called the fathers. So they're the fathers of Judaism. So we talked about Abraham and Isaac in previous classes, and now we're talking about what's relevant to this week's Torah portion, and that is Yaakov, Jacob. Let me close the door one second. Right. So it says that Jacob, what did Jacob do exactly? Well, it's not exactly so clear what he did. Especially when we see what sets the stage for the whole thing is that he goes, he leaves Israel, and on his way out of Israel, before he leaves Israel, so he takes a bunch of stones and he puts them in this place. He puts them around his head, and that sort of supposed to protect his head. And he goes to sleep and has a dream about a ladder, and then he wakes up and all the stones, they become one big stone. And he pours oil on it. And he said, if you bring me back to my father's house in peace, then this stone, this pillar will be a house of God, and I will give a tithe of everything I have, 1/10 of everything I have to you. Okay, so what has this got to do with the Jewish people? What's it got to do with anything? And what happened to Jacob? What is this even mentioned in the Torah? That he went to sleep, he put rocks under his head, and the rocks became one rock, and he poured oil on it, and then he spoke to God, and he said, if you bring me back to my father's house, then I'll make this into a house of God, and I'll give a tithe to you. I mean, can there be any more, how do you say, insignificant or mundane occurrence in the world than this? One particular person did one particular thing. So he had a dream, he did. And so the Rebbe said, yeah, but this is written in the Torah. And if it's written in the Torah, and because God wrote it in the Torah, so it must have some sort of an amazingly unusual and deep significance that we would not know this if it wasn't written in the Torah. It's not a thing you had to write about. It's not writing a history book. You write about the history of who knows, of Genghis Khan or something. And then someone else can do also investigation. They can do their work and they can find other details about Genghis Khan. He didn't really have 50 wives, he had 55 wives, and he didn't live in there, then wherever is in Mongolia, he really lived in Chicago, something like that. You can find many details, but here, this is a type of a thing which you can go back into history as much as you want. You're never going to find these details. And not only that, even if you do find them, who's going to pay any attention to it? Who will possibly pay any attention to what's going on here? So the idea is this is telling us something that's so very essential to mankind. It's the basis of all humanity. The basis of all humanity. That Yaakov laid down and he took a bunch of stones and he put them under his head, and he had this dream, and then he woke up and there became one stone, and he poured oil on it, and he said, if you bring me back to the house of my father, and then this will be a house of God, and I'll give a tithe. So the Rebbe explains it, and this mimer unusual in these discourses. Here we have a summary. Usually there are in Torah Or there's no summary. Anyway, here's the summary. So we'll get to the summary. All right. So essentially, what we said is that we're put into the world for a purpose, and when we're born, it's not only a biological fact that just people get born, like squirrels get born and fish get born and eggs hatch and things like that, and people get born. That certainly is true, but that's not the point. People being born, especially the Jewish people, but in general, people being born is different because human beings have a goal, a purpose to change the world, not to deal with the world as it is. Animals deal with the world as it is. Animals can't change things. They deal with the world as it is. Beavers build whatever it is, what are they called? Their dens or something. I can't remember what it is. And snakes make holes and rabbits make things. So they have their birds make nests. That's their nature. They're not changing nature. A human being can change nature, and a Jew can, even more than that, he can reveal the source of nature. He can reveal the creator in the creation, the reason why there is nature, the reason behind nature. Now, a normal scientist or whatever will say, what are you talking about? There's no reason for nature. We just want everything to function the way it's supposed to be. There's no problems, that's all. And it says, no, that's not it. Every person has a goal. Every person, and in fact, if people don't realize their goal, then there's going to be problems. People make problems for themselves. Then people are frustrated and people are depressed and they're anxious, and there's wars because people don't know what their function is. But people know and feel that there has to be a purpose. There has to be a function, some reason to live. Which that maybe sort of explains, how all of these, we're talking about Genghis Khan and all these other people, how they mustered up so many hundreds of thousands of people to go and destroy and make war and just to follow them, Napoleon to follow them, because people feel there's a purpose, something, and no one's telling them what this purpose is. And all of a sudden stands up, Napoleon or, whoever it is, and says, their purpose is to conquer. Okay, let's do it. And what do you do after you conquer? I don't know. After communism is set in, and then there's order and peace, what do you do then? I don't know. You just, no problem. That's the goal of life, is no problem. It says that's not so. Everybody has a purpose. What's the purpose? The purpose is for a non-Jew to make the world into an orderly, blessed place, and for the Jews to make the world into a holy place. To reveal God in every aspect of his creation. That's the job of the Jews. And that's what Yaakov did. He took the stones, and which the stones represent the letters of creation, and he put them together and unified them to show that the whole creation is there in order to reveal the creator. Said, who's going to do this thing? The Moshiach. The Moshiach is going to be a true leader. Genghis Khan or whatever, Napoleon or whoever this is, what was the guy's name? Mao Zedong. They were false leaders. All the founders of all the other religions, they were false leaders. They were false leaders. but people know that there's some sort of a purpose, so they followed them. It says here we're talking about a true leader is going to be the Mashiach. Mashiach is going to be a person that's going to open up everyone's potential by showing them the goal of creation, why they're here. To use everything in the world the way God wants. God expects a lot more from the Jews than from the non-Jews, but nevertheless he expects from everybody. Okay, Vazel, and that's the whole thing of Yitzchak, the father of Jacob. This whole thing is talking about Jacob, but Jacob said, I want to go back to the house of my father, right? That wants to go back to my house of my father. He says, my father is talking about Yitzchak, and Yitzchak, he's going to be the main force, the main catalyst to bring the future redemption, like we talked about, where every human being is going to realize their purpose in the world. Here we go. That's what it says. Al Yitzchak Tavka and Yitzchak. It says by Yitzchak ki ata avinu. It says in the future. What do we brought with? We brought from Isaiah. It says Abraham didn't know us, and Yaakov didn't recognize us, and Yitzchak, you are our father. We explained why, because God comes to, God says, I've had it with the Jewish people enough. Maybe I'll go to Yaakov. It's a midrash. I'll go to Yaakov. I'll get Abraham. Ask him what he thinks. He says, okay, God, I've used up all my arguments. Do whatever you want. And then he goes to Yaakov. Jacob, and he says, what do you want? What do you do? What do you say, Jacob? Can you defend the Jewish people? And Jacob said, I don't know what to say. All my arguments have already, gone. They're just too disappointing. And then Yitzchak says, one second, why didn't you come to me? Okay, Ed says, okay, what do you got to say? So Yitzchak said, listen, 8 hours of the day they sleep. 8 hours of the day they're in business. And the other 8 hours of the day, that's the time when they can do sins and bad things. So you know what? And you forgive them half, and I'll take the other half on myself. And God said, okay, I'll do it. And therefore it says in the future, it says, Ato Avinu, that you, Yitzchak, you're going to be our father. But here the Rebbe is saying in a deeper way. The whole thing, the word Yitzchak means he will laugh. Yitzchak, he will laugh. There will be joy. There will be joy. And the Rebbe explained that joy comes from something unusual. And that's what we talked about last time, like a talking chicken, right? You bring into the king is depressed. He's already seen he's got all the riches, and he's had all the pleasures, and he's had everything. Someone comes into him with a chicken that can talk. This is enough to see whatever it is, a parrot can talk. Okay. A crow can talk. A crow, whether raven nevermore. A raven can talk. A chicken cannot talk. Not talk. He brings that chicken into the king, and the chicken starts to talk. This is the most amazing thing. The next day, the chicken says a couple of sentences, and the day after that, he says a couple of jokes. The king is just enchanted. He's so happy. Well, that's what the world is. The world is like this big chicken. And the nature of a chicken is to go around and act like a chicken. And to make a chicken that he can act like a human being and that he can talk, that's amazing. That it means taking, what if you take a rock? You take a rock and you teach a rock how to talk. That's really ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. Would that make the king happy? For sure. If you could do it, that would make the king happy. Well, that's what the world is. The world is like a big rock. It's totally insensitive to anything above itself. The world itself screams out, there's no creator, there's no meaning. And to take the world and to use the world the way God wants, so that the world becomes a loudspeaker for God. It becomes a conveyor of godliness, a talking stone. This is amazing. This is an amazing thing. There can't be any comparison to it. And that's exactly the thing of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is going to teach us how we can change our nature. We can change all of nature, that we can reveal the creator and the creation. And that's why it says La'atid in the future about Yitzchak specifically, Ki ata avinu, that you are our father, Lihiot, because Kizeu tachlit hamakuvan. This is the whole entire purpose. This is the whole entire goal. Let me make this bigger a little bit here. 1 second, 1 minute. All right, that's what it means. Ata avinu, you are our father, because that's the whole entire purpose why God made this world. We're talking about reality here. We're not talking about just a part. We're talking about all reality. Why did God make it all? The whole purpose of Yeridas and Ishtalshalos Olamos, of the descent of the worlds from all these high, holy, spiritual places, Kadei in order by means of this, God did it so there will be tzchok v'tainug l'mayla, that God will have pleasure and joy. Like we said before. And a person could say, oh, come on, that's a bit cruel. I mean, that's what God did. So and let's take just an example of giving birth to children. A person, you have a family. Now, there's a big movement in the world now that don't have family. Your power of procreation should just be used for your own pleasure. It's a big, huge movement in the world right nowadays. Why? Because you give birth to children, what happens? It's troubles. The children, they go to the bathroom in their pants, and their diapers, and and then they cry, and they keep you up at night, and there's problems. Then you got disappointments with the children. They don't turn out the way you want, and this and that. But there's no greater satisfaction in life than having children, to have a family. Those people who don't know what it means, they can't conceive of what it means. It's impossible to conceive of it, especially if you come from a background where the family meant nothing. But the fact of the matter is for a person to see his children growing up, there's no greater, feeling of of let's say, not of fulfillment, of humanness than that. That's the ultimate expression of being a human being, is that you make more potential in the world, you reveal more humanness in the world. The more people there are, the more humans there are, the more. That's why I always say these people who are pro-abortion, it's really quite ridiculous, because what do they say? They're pro-choice. Well, that's simply not true. The more human beings there are in the world, the more choice there is. The more, the essence of a human being is free choice. The more human beings there are, the more free choice there is in the world. So if you're pro-choice, you want to have more children. The problem is that it's problems. It's problems. Having children, you have big responsibilities and you can't do what you want. But on the other hand, that's what life is about, filling responsibilities. And that's the whole idea why God wants there to be the world. The world is, so to speak, like his child. And the world is growing up. And the idea is that it's in our hands to make the world into a world that will give God satisfaction, pleasure. In Hebrew, they call it nachas. Nachat. Nachat. Well, that's what it means, Shavti v'shalom. That's what Yaakov said. I will go back in peace to my father's house. Ki bechinat oneg, this level of pleasure that God gets from the world, from his creation, shidgala, this will all be revealed la'atid, in the future. By means of these elevations and coming back down that we talked about, that a person realizes what God wants, and he thinks about what God wants, and he says, I'm going to do it. And he comes into the world and he tries to do it, and it doesn't work so easily. Things that are in thought work perfectly, but in fact, a lot of times it's a lot more difficult. And a lot of times ideas that you think are so wonderful, and then when it comes down to the physical world, you realize that they're not wonderful at all. They're not good ideas. Sometimes there's bad ideas. Sometimes the things that are the easiest seem the best. It comes out to be the biggest failures. Sometimes the things which are the most difficult, they come out to be the best. But the idea is that it has to be going up and coming down. A person always goes up. Namely, he goes and thinks, what am I here for? What are my principles? Am I doing what I resolved in my mind? I made a resolution. I'm going to be honest from now on. I made a resolution from now on. I'm going to stop being selfish. Right? People make resolutions. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop cursing. And then he comes into the world and he can't control himself. What's going on? So a person always has to be coming up and coming down. They have in the 12-step program. I don't know if you know about this, but there's addictions. People get addicted. There's a whole 1,000 things people get addicted to, and they can't control themselves. So what do? They go to meetings, and in the meetings, that's like going up. They go back to the source, and they realize, yes, I have to fight this thing, and then they come back into the physical world, and they have to deal with it, and then they go. Ideally, that's what prison is supposed to be. What's prison? Ideally, that's what it's supposed to be. It's a place where people go and get rehabilitated. They get attached to true ideals and true values. That's what it's supposed to be. And so that the person has what to go back up to all the time, and he can deal with the world. And that's the Jewish people are supposed to bring to the world what true values are, that we can actually do what the Creator wants. And all the efforts that were put into this, this goal, which have not been fruitful up to now, all the fruits of that will be revealed in the days of the Moshiach. Like it says, Shenikra b'chinas shalom. That's the idea of shalom, peace. What is peace? Peace is when there's two opposites that are joined together. Like it says, Ose shalom b'mromav, that God makes peace in the upper worlds. What does it mean? That there's angels. The angels are infinitely big, if you want to call it. So the angel Michael is the angel of kindness and water and giving. And he's infinite. He takes up all heaven. And then there's Gabriel. Gabriel is the angel of severity. That's fire. That also takes up all heaven. How can it possibly get together? God makes them peace. God makes it that all the opposites can be all together. Shalom, shalom. There's a sentence also from Isaiah. It says, peace, peace from far away and near. Hainu, beis bechinas shalom. These are two levels of peace. Peace from below to above, and peace from above to below. Now, what do we say peace is? Peace is the uniting of two opposites. That's true peace. People that go into the woods or the whatever it is, and they want to be separate from mankind so they get a little peace of mind. That's not really peace. That's not peace. That's like after a person dies, right? It's rest in peace. What does it mean, peace? Peace means, in this case, it means he's got no challenges, but that's not true idea of peace. Peace means that two opposites, two things which were opposing one another, find something common between them and work together. That's peace. And like we said before, you have a family, and the family is you don't know what's going to happen. It's uncertain, and everything turns out wonderful, right? The children come out to be honest, productive people, and they're helpful, and that's what's called peace, right? Now we can say, I see that all my efforts have proved fruitful. That's called peace. There's two types of peace. The ultimate opposites are the upper worlds and this physical world. The upper worlds, they're aware of God. They know their creations. And there's you can call it peace, but that's not the peace that God wants. God wants this physical world where it seems to be totally separate from God. It's totally opposite of what God is, right? God is pure good. God is pure life. God is pure creation. And in this world, it's pure selfishness and pure destruction. So it says that's the idea of making this world, which is, so to speak, the opposite of God. That's what it says, even man, God made man in his image. Man thinks that he's God. God made us that we should think we're God. So he made God from above to below, and from below to above. What does it mean from below to above? Two types of peace. Shalom, shalom. That's the one who's far away that becomes close. Remember, we talked about tshuva, returning. This is from going from below to above. Then there's that's one type of peace. From below to above. Let's take the example. Let's say you have a person that's a criminal and he's a drug addict, whatever, and someone comes to him and says, "What are you doing? Sam, you used to be, you're a different type of a person. You're a human being. You're not an animal. Why you acting? I know you. I remember you from school. Remember, you used to be one of the best students in the class. What happened to you? How can you have to be honest. You have to be truthful." All of a sudden he says, "Wow, yeah, you're right. I have to be honest." You show him an example of somebody, they used to, George Washington was honest. This person is honest. Yeah, I should be like that. Here's a person who's brave. You should be brave. Given the principles, that's called going from below to above. Here we're not talking about these mundane things that I talked about. Here we're talking about, who you are? You are a creation of God. A creation of God. God cares for you. He loves you. He's creating you. You're not alone. Somebody believes in you. God is creating you. He has faith in you. God is creating. That means calls. All of a sudden, a person starts to think, yeah, maybe he's right. That's called going from below to above. Then there's another type of peace, which is coming from above to below. That's Yerida v'hamshachas elokus, drawing down godliness from above to below in the Torah and the commandments. In simple language, that's called also inspiration. Psychologically, a person all of a sudden gets an inspiration. Wow, I am a human being. I am a creation of God. I can't be doing this. Right? This is wrong. I can't steal and murder. And person gets an arousal suddenly from above to below. Says the Rebbe, we have this Jewish people, we have it fixed, and the whole world has this above to below. That's Torah and the commandments. God gave Torah and the commandments as a constant reminder that God is coming into the world. The Torah is not just something that God gave 3,000 whatever years ago at Sinai. True, that's when it was revealed, but the Torah and the commandments are being given right now. The Torah is God's wisdom, and the commandments are God's will. That's right now. Right? God is eternal, above time, and Torah and the commandments are above time, in time. That's from above to below. Come over, like it says, we said before, like it says, V'yitzchak Shem, and that's the idea that Yitzchak, he took the stones and he made them one stone. That's from below to above, and he poured oil on them. That's from above to below. Shalom, by means of these two types of peace. Shehem, they are eshapcha. This is what's called transformation from darkness to light. And suddenly a person realizes that being selfish is being in a dark world. Thinking only of myself is very, what do you call it, myopic or something like that, tunnel vision. I can only just see myself. I don't see anything else. What's relevant to me? Suddenly you start to think about God, that God creates me, then 1 second, I'm not alone. I'm being created by God. I'm created for a godly purpose. And God is giving me power to do this. God himself, the creator himself, is creating me right now. A person realizes that. That's called transforming darkness to light. To prove the world will not be separate anymore. Everything will be unified and negated, just like it is above in the upper worlds, mamash. So let's just take a simple example. Beethoven wants to write a symphony, right? A symphony, and he gets this idea, and he wants to write a symphony. It's all in his mind, and he feels the harmony, he feels the unity, he feels the dissonance in his mind. That's going from below to above. He goes to this world is separate. You won't find in this world in a natural way such harmony and beauty. Once in a while, a bird sings or something like that. But harmony and this is, you don't find it. So he's in the world, and somebody says, "Excuse me, Beethoven, want to eat?" He says, "Leave me alone. I'm up in the upper worlds." Right? That's called going from below to above. In the world, there's no harmony, and he connects himself to something above. And that's from below to above. That's in Judaism. We're saying in this world, that everything in this world is an instrument for God. And our job is to make harmony. What's that? That's to get to the source. What in the world is God creating the world for? Right? It's like Beethoven. What is there a tuba for? And why is there a trumpet? And why is there a violins with a viola, with a bassoon and an oboe and this? What the whole world is our instruments. And when we think that God is creating everything so that there should be harmony in the world, how can I do it? By doing my little part. Good, I can't control the whole world like Beethoven controlled the whole orchestra, but at least my life I can. Right? Beethoven also didn't control all the instruments in the world. He just controlled his one orchestra that he had, but he wrote what did down so that other people can take an example and they can use it on their orchestras also. So now you know what to do with the piccolo and with this. So we can take the world and make it into a symphony. But first of all, we have the world, and then we have the plan. That's going from what do we want that the upper world should be like in the physical world? That there's harmony and beauty and godliness and meaning and dynamic, positive life that's in the upper worlds should be revealed in every detail of this world. Everything in the world should be a surprise, a beautiful, wonderful surprise, and it should call us to either appreciate it or do something with it to elevate it. So that's what it means that the lower worlds, that the world should be just like the lower worlds here, the world of separation should be surrendered to God, just like they are in the upper worlds. Like I said, the whole orchestra should be surrendered to the music. As I then ashuv, that's what Yaakov said. When it's like that, then ashuv el beit avi, I will go back to the house of my father. She'd galeh, then there will be revealed from above to below. Memela bechinas ha'onig, this pleasure of God that He gets from above to below, which is ein sof mamish. Lamaila maila mishtoshel is from above, almost the madrigas rambos maila umata bechoshech baor. It will be revealed down here in this physical world, the oneness and the truth of the Creator. Or in simple English, the world will be healthy. It'll be a healthy world. A healthy, beautiful, dynamic world. Right? Our goal is not that the world will be all of a sudden just, calm and nothing. That's heaven. That's after you die. We don't want death. We want life. There's only real life is only in this world. We don't see it now because we're separated from the truth. But the truth is in us. It's to be revealed that this world is infinitely, infinitely good. Which is not God in regarding God's essence. Up and down are the same. Beli shinui, without any difference. Darkness is like light. So I'm sorry, I stopped the sentence in the wrong place. Let's go here. Let's see. It says, what does it start? The aliyah de beis bechinas, by means of these two types of peace, that they are what's called es hapcha, transforming darkness to light from below to above and from above to below. Then there will be Almid the Pruda, all these separate worlds. Yiyub, Almid the Pruda, Rak bechinas yichud bebitul. The worlds will be separate. The worlds which seem to be separate will be surrendered to God, just like it is above. As I then Ashuv Beit Avi, then Yaakov said, I'll go back to my father's house. Then it'll be revealed automatically the upper pleasure of God, which is above the worlds in many, many levels, Maila Umata V'choshech V'or, up and down, darkness and light, will be revealed godliness. But when its true godliness is revealed, the Gabi Atzmo, so the essence of God, Katan V'gadol Shavim, will realize that all the worlds are the same, without any difference, like darkness is like light. Then it says, God will be mine le'elokim. Then it says there won't, what is he saying? The upper worlds will be revealed in the lower worlds. So the lower worlds will feel the upper, but there will be upper and lower worlds. It says, but the goal of Yaakov was to reveal godliness in this world, the essence of God in this world. And then we'll realize that the whole business was just one huge, amazing creation. All the spiritual worlds and all the heavens and all this, all just one creation. It's just one creation of God. Up and low is just the same. And that'll all be revealed here. How this is going to be, I don't know. And that's the idea also of the raising of the dead. It says that even the dead will come alive. Why won't the dead be dead? What's the difference? There's no difference, but somehow or other from God's essence, God wants life. He wants this physical world. That's what God wants from his essence. And that'll be revealed. It makes no difference to God, upper worlds or lower worlds, but for somehow or other, from God's essence, the main thing is the lower worlds. This makes no sense, but it's the truth. Masha Enkin, which is not the key. Oh, this is the key, because here you can see it says Shemesh v'Magin Hashem Elokim, because it says that God is a sun, like the illuminator in the sky, and he is also Elokim. He's also the covering. Shekamosha Magin, just like a covering, is a nartik. It's like a sheath over the sun. I guess you could call it the atmosphere of the world, and it covers over and it hides over the light of the sun. Similarly, the name Elokim, which is the power of creation, how God creates the world, Hu bechinas nartik, this is a sheath. It covers over the name of Yud-Ke Vav-Ke. And it covers and it hides over it. Lios nivraim bali gavul, so that the creations will be limited. Now, the world is godliness. The world, what is godliness? Godliness is reality. What is real? Godliness. But there's many thousands and thousands of levels of reality that God creates by means of concealing his light of reality. So this world is definitely real, but it's nothing compared to the upper worlds where the angels are. And those worlds, there's upper worlds which are above them. Right? It's almost like a person walking down the street, a poor person, and he finds, $1 on the street. Oh, he's very happy. And he walks a little further and suddenly finds $100. Oh, he's even more happy. He might even throw the dollar away, let somebody else find it. And then he walks down a little further and somebody says, hey, I'll give you $10,000. Take the $10,000, $100, I'll give it to a poor person, right? It's more real. The more real that it is, $1 million is more real than 10,000, and a billion is more real. That's just a very weak sort of an example of the upper worlds compared to this world. In this world, there's pleasure, there's accomplishments, but it's nothing compared to the upper worlds. Heaven and those places, that's why this is called heaven. That's why all these religions stress going to heaven, because the upper worlds, you have a glimpse of what real reality is. It says, but that's absolutely nothing compared to what the Creator himself is. The Creator himself, he creates all this whole business. So he's ultimately real. So all these worlds and coverings, that's the name Elohim. It says Elokim because we don't say the word Elohim. So it's Elokim. And this is only covering up the Creator himself, Yud-Ke Vav-Ke. That's the essence of God. It's covered over. That's why it says Shemesh v'Magin. God is like a sun in the sky and like the atmosphere that covers it over. The atmosphere are all the worlds. So the sun is a metaphor for God himself. And God wants to be revealed. The name Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's the essence of God. This is the Hamshachas Or Hashem. I'm sorry. But the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's how God, the essence of God is drawn down without any coverings. Hine, behold, calls all this. That's what happens when a Jew does a commandment, for instance. That draws down the essence of God. That was the Holy Temple. The difference between the Holy Temple and the Eiffel Tower, let's say. Could be the Eiffel Tower is a greater the architectural achievement, and could be much more impressive than the Holy Temple was. The Holy Temple was a building. It was pretty much square. There was no unusual shapes or curves or anything there, and it wasn't an architectural the miracle achievement or something like that. But what's the difference? The Eiffel Tower is the greatest achievement. I'm just making this up. The greatest achievement from the creation. And the Holy Temple, this is the Creator. The Creator is revealed there. It's a different thing totally. It's not part of the creation. It's a regular building. It's a regular thing. But when people would go there, they would feel that it's not. The problem is that people would leave. When they would leave, they wouldn't feel godliness anymore. He calls it, all this is talking about Ishtalshlus, and all this talking about the creation and the chain of creation from above to below. Darkness and light. How God conceals over himself. But in the future, when there will be revealed this pleasure that God has received, which this pleasure is infinite, it's eternal. Shehula Maila, this is much above the whole entire creation. This is the reason for creation. And when we fulfill the reason of creation, then this becomes a tremendous revelation of God, the essence of God. This is much, much above, higher than even the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, and even the name Elokim. The name Yud Kei Vav Kei is how God reveals himself in the worlds. The name Elokim is how God conceals this revelation in the world. So we don't see God, we just see a world. But God himself is above both of these names. That's what happens when we do commandments, by the way. That's the idea, the difference between the commandments and everything else, or the difference between the Holy Temple and every other building in the world. There's the revelation of the essence of God. Now, which is just called the name of God, now, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei, the highest aspect of God there can possibly be now. Yaakov said that this highest aspect of God, which can be revealed now, will be as then in the future when Mashiach comes, Elohim. It'll just be a low level. Legabe Bechinas Oneg, and compared to this upper pleasure. Now that we said before, but as then it says Ha'evan Azot, then this stone that I made for a pillar will be a house for God. So here's what the Rebbe is saying. Listen, he's saying like this. Now the world is Elohim. God is totally concealed. When we do commandments and when we worship and pray and elevate ourselves and bring blessings down into the world, that's revealing the name of God, the name of the Creator, Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's the name. But in the future, what's going to be revealed is the pleasure that God got from all of the efforts that were put out by the Jewish people and also the non-Jews, if they did it for the name, really according to what the Torah says. And if they did it because the Torah says it. So all this revelation will be in the future. That'll be higher than any name of God. Then the world will be a receptacle for the essence of God. There'll be no difference between spiritual and physical. And then we'll see for some reason, God in his essence, he favors this physical world. That's what's going to be. That's what Yaakov was doing. Yaakov said, I'm putting all these stones together. That's unifying from below to above. I'm pouring oil on top of them. That's from above to below. That's like Torah and the commandments. And then if everything works out, now I'm going to go and work with Lavan and Esav. Then there's going to be even a higher level. These stones will be a house for God. The stones we said are the letters of God that he uses to create the world. The whole world will be a vessel for the Creator. This will be incomparable. This is something you can't bring a metaphor or an example of, right? A person goes and he finds a $1 bill, and then he finds $100, then he finds 10,000, then he finds $1 million, then he finds $1 trillion, then he finds all the money in the world. Then there comes from people from the planet Zork, and they say, we're making you the president, the king of the whole entire universe, all of the planets with all the money, all the creations, the aliens and the extraterrestrial, it's all yours, right? Okay, is there anything more than that? That's the highest example you could possibly give. What he's got all the riches in the world, all the fame, all the pleasures, all anything he wants. You've got it all. So says the Rebbe is saying, that's all wonderful. That's all just examples that we can bring that's a little bit comprehensible. Let's take this instead of saying you get the universe, you get the creator, revelations of the creator of the universe. That's something we can sort of relate to. Here the Rebbe is saying the whole idea of the raising of the dead is something which is totally incomprehensible, and that's really the the motor that's keeping this whole world in existence. Totally, it's not in the category of understanding, and that's what the Jewish people are supposed to do. That's what it means. Titan li, in the future, that God, He will give you, God, you will give to me future. I know call aliyot, all these elevations that are going to be in the future. Hakol aser asrenu noch, I will give everything to you. That's meiser, like it says. That's the level of keter. He said that's the crown. It'll all be revealed in the world. So what is the point of the whole thing? That we'll only understand in the future. But we're talking about what reality is. What is real reality? And real reality is us doing what God wants and God revealing His essence, the true, essential, and you just say wonder of this world. That this physical world becomes a vessel, every detail of it becomes blessed and a revelation for God, to the degree that the world will be so important, there won't even be any heaven. There won't be heaven anymore. All the souls that are up in heaven will come down to the earth. They'll be in bodies, because the body is so precious. How this is going to be, it's impossible to understand, but that's Judaism. That's what Judaism is. Judaism is the revelation of the essence of God in this physical world. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. And now we'll learn a speech of the Rebbe, Devar Malchut.